at the back, and so I certainly know what you're up against, so thank you very much. Okay, speak up a little. Okay, so once again, I apologize for those subtitles being so difficult. I was thinking of several things to say when I was watching the movie, but in fact, I think a moment of silence would be more appropriate than saying anything. So perhaps we'll just take a minute to gather our thoughts and gather our hearts. Okay, and I think our hearts are with each other now. I hope so, and our thoughts. We do have a special panel here where they will introduce themselves. I'll give a little introduction, and they will speak for a little bit, and then we'll have a Q&A. So the first person is Maxine Kaufman-Lacusta. She's a Quaker Jew and a longtime member of the Independent Jewish Voices and the Vancouver Quaker Meeting and Or Shalom Synagogue. So she lived in Jerusalem for 7 years during the first Intifada, and was in various Israeli and joint organizations resisting the Israeli occupation and its associated oppressive policies and practices. I'm going to probably just, because we're a little bit short on time, she's written and spoken widely on Palestinian and Israeli nonviolent activism and related topics, and is the principal author with Palestinian and Israeli editorial partners, Ghassan Andoni and Jeff Halper, of the interview-based book, Refusing to Be Enemies, Palestinian and Israeli Nonviolent Resistance to the Israeli Occupation. Next is Walid Kadri. He is a Palestinian-Canadian teacher in the Lower Mainland who specializes in the history of Middle East and North Africa. He completed his master's degree from the University of Ottawa, where he specialized in Israeli family law. He has visited Palestine 4 times and has spent a significant amount of time in the West Bank. Arwa Shurab is a Muslim Palestinian leadership coach, trainer in anti-Palestinian racism and Islamophobia, and co-founder of BC MAP, BC Muslim and Arab Professionals. She holds a master's degree in global leadership and is a master certified life coach. As founder of Her Voice, Arwa empowers women in leadership while challenging systemic discrimination and promoting equality. Rooted in her lived experience, she advocates for Muslim women and families across BC. So please welcome our special panel. And I believe Maxine.
Maxine wants to look at the slides.
Okay, oh yeah, that's right. Okay, so Maxine also has some slides that she'll be showing, and we'll have this set up in a sec.
Hello? Is this on? Yeah? Okay. So I'm here representing Independent Jewish Voices. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, good. Independent Jewish Voices, IJV, is a grassroots organization grounded in Jewish tradition that opposes all forms of racism and advocates for justice and peace for all in the land of historic Palestine. We believe that the broad spectrum of opinion among the Jewish population in this country is not reflected by those institutions that claim to represent Jewish communities as a whole, and certainly not by the government of the State of Israel. We therefore resolved to promote the expression of alternative Jewish voices, particularly in respect to the grave situation in the Middle East, which threatens both the future of both Palestinians and Israelis, as well as the stability of the whole region. Of course, IJV calls on Canada to press for a permanent ceasefire and a two-way arms embargo immediately, but that's only the beginning. To guarantee a more hopeful future for everyone in occupied Palestine, Israeli settler colonialism must be addressed, the siege of Gaza lifted, the occupation and apartheid regime in Israel ended. As Jews, we must fight this ongoing genocide. IJV says never again for anybody, anywhere, especially not at the hands of our fellow Jews. So as Israel continues to bombard and invade the Gaza Strip, demolishing homes and schools and hospitals and other vital infrastructure, and killing hundreds of innocent civilians every day, cutting off vital humanitarian aid, and forcing thousands of others to live under impossible conditions, we join other progressive Jews in proclaiming that Israel does not speak in our name, that our safety as Jews is intertwined with and requires the safety of the Palestinian people, and that Jewish people across Turtle Island demand a free Palestine. So, I joined IJV in 2008, a year or so after its founding. And before coming to live in BC in 1996, I lived in Jerusalem for 7 years and was active with a number of Israeli and joint Palestinian-Israeli organizations opposing the Israeli occupation and its oppressive practices. In January of 1995, in January of 1995, members of some of these groups were invited to Masafer Yatta, also called the South Hebron Hills, to protest harassment of the Palestinians living there by the Israeli army, which had demolished many of their homes in 1985. This has been going on a long time. Forcing them to live in caves and tents, and periodically would make them leave the area for military exercises, during which they often trashed the contents of the cave homes. Even then, the encroaching Israeli settlements were visible, in this case, between the town of Yatta and the cave site. In 1998, my husband and I spent a few days with community peacemaker teams, at the time still called Christian peacemaker teams, and joined them for a day in Susia village, helping gather recently harvested wheat to be shipped to market. Sadly, it took a while to get trucks to ship the wheat, and before the arrival of the trucks, settlers had burnt the wheat. I don't have access to slides I took when I visited Masafer Yatta with people from the Villages group, which is one of the groups listed on this list here, that there are a few copies in the back and a sign-up sheet for those who want a digital copy, so you can click on the various links. But the Villages group has been working with people in the Masafer Yatta, visiting at least once a week, every week for at least 10 or 20 years now, maybe more, and helping out where they can. And they send out regular reports and cover all of the atrocities going on, so I highly recommend finding out about them. My last visit to that area was in 2014. with the Israel-based group Ta'ayush, whose members are Palestinian and Jewish citizens of Israel. And you can see not a whole lot has changed there in terms of facilities. There's now a warning sign at the entrance to the villages telling Israeli citizens that they're not only forbidden to go there, but they endanger their lives by doing so. Obviously, activists just ignore that. The people there are still living in tents and caves. And many of them are having to haul purchased water from great distances for themselves and their flocks. The Palestinian Authority helps out to a certain degree, and there's a wonderful small initiative called Comet Middle East, a small joint Israeli-Palestinian initiative using wind turbines and solar panels. You can see the solar panel in the picture, to provide electricity to Susia and other communities in the Safariyata and the South Arab Hills. And I just want to again put in a plug for the many, many organizations, both Israeli and Palestinian and mixed, that are doing an immense amount of stuff to try to end the terrible things going on there, and local organizations here that tie into them. You can support from afar, you can actually go there, you can watch webinars, there's a lot you can do. And I believe there's going to be slides of more actions that are recommended as well. Thank you.
Okay, next, Waleed Kadre. So please. He also has some slides to share with us.
All right, hi everybody. Everyone can hear me in the back? Okay, good, all right. I'm a teacher by trade, so I can use my teacher voice. You can hear me loud and clear, I'm sure. I'm Palestinian. My family comes from the city of Haifa, which today is the third largest city in Israel. My family on my mother's side are survivors of the Nakba. They were ethnically cleansed from the city of Haifa in 1948. They fled to Lebanon. They lived in southern Lebanon for a long period of time, and then eventually went other places. Oh, give me 1 second.
Technical problems. So strange.
So, I mean, I could tell you about myself, about my family history. I could do a quick run through. So my mother's side of the family is from Haifa, from a neighborhood called Wadi Misnas, which still exists today. They were ethnically cleansed from their homes. They weren't allowed to return. They waited at the border in southern Lebanon in 1948 to go back to their homes. The Israeli government closed the borders in 1948. And then they decided to live in Lebanon for a period of time. Their passports, my grandfather's passport, his Palestinian passport, was deemed no longer valid. So it's basically a souvenir to these days. And they became stateless. And my mother was born stateless. She was born, which is very sad actually, that she was born stateless. Being a stateless person is very difficult. And many Palestinians in the room, I'm sure, know the difficulties that they face. And it's very difficult to travel. She had what was called a laissez-passer, travel document, but it wasn't a passport. When she came to Canada in 1982, fleeing the Lebanese Civil War, then she later on became a Canadian citizen. nobody in my mother's family ever went back to Palestine, to Haifa. Their home is still there. Many people dreamed of going back home. My grandfather, I'd never met him, but he dreamed of going back home. He died, never going back to his house in Haifa. And in 2015, I was the first person in 70 years to go back home to my house in Haifa. I met the Israeli woman that was living in my house. She offered me coffee. And she said, when I die, I'll give you, you can have the house back. But I know as a Palestinian, and many Palestinians in the room also know this, we do not have the right to return back to our homes. The Israeli government has refused and not recognized our citizenship and our indigeneity to the land and indigeneity to the homes and to our homes in Haifa and Jaffa and Akka and all the major cities in historic Palestine. But as a Canadian citizen, I have the privilege of being able to go back and have been back 4 times. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about not my story, but the story of a man that I met when I was in Hebron, or Khalil. In Arabic we call it Khalil, which is a beautiful name. Khalil is one of the largest cities, or Hebron is one of the largest cities in the West Bank, and it's very close to Masafir Yatta. Khalil means friend. It's a very nice name, and it comes from an honorific title for Abraham, or in Arabic we say Ibrahim. He's in the Quran, I believe he's called Khalilullah, which is the friend of God. And Hebron, if you know your biblical history, Hebron is where he's buried. So actually this picture right here, I didn't take this picture, but this is the Ibrahimi Mosque. This is where he and many of his family members are buried. And so the entire town is named after him, Khalil. So in Arabic we call it Khalil, in Hebrew it's called Hebron, and in English it's called Hebron. So I've been back home 4 times, 2008, 2012, 2015, 2017. And this trip was in 2012. I was just bumming around Hebron by myself, and I went to this masjid, and I met this American guy and this British guy, and we were like, hey, let's go walk around downtown Hebron and see what's going on. And this guy walks up to us, we're just hanging out, talking to some kids. He's like, hey, do you want to see the areas you're not allowed to see? And I was like, sure, yeah, okay. He's like, come with me. And so he took us to this neighborhood called Tel Rumeida. It is a neighborhood in downtown Hebron, downtown Khalil, which was like the most bustling area of Hebron. In the 1990s, there was an awful massacre that happened at that mosque that I showed you earlier by an American man who I think he killed up to 100 people. His name was Baruch Goldstein. And so after Baruch Goldstein committed this awful atrocity, killing worshippers in this mosque, the mosque was split in 2. It was made into one half became a synagogue, the other one remained a mosque, and that area, that downtown area, was expropriated by the Israeli government. And so Apartheid Street, which is the entrance of this street in Tel Rumeida, which is the old Shahadat Street, which is Martyrs Street, it was completely cut off. So Palestinians were not allowed into this street, and they still are not allowed into the street, which is like the downtown. Imagine like Robson Street has been cut off. That's basically what happened. So this neighborhood was taken by the Israeli government. A bunch of settlers were moved into this neighborhood. Only Palestinians who lived in the neighborhood were allowed to go into their homes, and the entrances of their homes were actually blocked off. So you're not actually allowed into the they have like cement walls on the entrances of people's homes. So we get into Apartheid Street because we are Canadians and Americans and British. And this is the checkpoint. So you give them your passport, they let you in, but it's completely blocked off, as you can see, and empty, and completely empty. So the Israelis check you, whatever, they let you in, ask you some questions, they finally let you in, and you go inside. There's some signage in Hebrew and English, highlighting the historic sites. One area says, the city center, industrial area, shopping, but Jewish access forbidden. So the Israeli government is also perpetuating this notion of Jews aren't allowed in this area, but Arabs are not allowed in the Jewish settlement area. So I thought that was really interesting. And so I was brought to this man's house, this man Hashim Razi, and he told me about his story. This was the American guy and the British guy that I met. And he explained to me what has happened to his neighborhood in Tel Rumeida and how much time do I have?
30 seconds. 5 minutes left period.
I don't want to take too much time. I will do this in 5 minutes. Is that okay? Okay, 5 minutes. So he has been under threat of expropriation of his home and his land by the Israeli government. And so for the last 15 years, this was taken in 2012, and the Israelis and settlers had basically surrounded his home. And any moment that he left his house, the threat of the Israelis would come in and take his home and kick him out and take his land and expropriate his land, just because of the sheer fact that he's Palestinian. And so he's surrounded literally by Israeli settlers who are harassing him every day, throwing garbage into his backyard, rubbish, chairs, metal that looks like a wood pallet, just completely harassing him on a daily basis. And abuse as well. So these were homes, these were his neighbors, but their homes were expropriated by Israeli settlers and the Israeli government, and now they've surveilled his home. They have surveillance cameras up here and Israeli settlements over here. And as you can see, the cameras up there, barbed wire fencing, and he's literally surrounded. And he would face daily abuse. They attacked his wife 2 times while she was pregnant. She miscarried 2 separate times because of abuse, because of physical assaults by Israeli settlers who were extremely aggressive. This was the way to get into their house. It was a wooden ladder because the Israelis had literally blocked off the entire entrance of his home. This was an Israeli occupation force watchtower literally behind his house. And they were constantly surveilling. If any minute he left his house, they would come and swoop in and steal the home. They were shooting at his house, bullet holes in the windows of his home. And they're just facing so much mental abuse on a daily basis from Israeli settlers, bottles of urine thrown into his yard. And unfortunately, in 2015, he passed away. He was dealing with a cardiac arrest, and so he needed to go to the hospital. The Israeli occupation forces would not allow the arrival of paramedics, and so he died waiting for paramedics to arrive. So this man is one example of Palestinians who have lost their homes and who luckily his wife is still in the house, from what I understand, and they still live in the home. But that area, Hebron and South Hebron Hills, is under so much threat and pressure of expropriation by the Israeli government They want Hebron. They want these areas surrounding Hebron, the South Hebron Hills. And Palestinians, unfortunately, in the West Bank are under so much pressure and fear for their livelihoods and fear for their safety, and have so much fear that they will lose their connection to their land and be ethnically cleansed, like so many Palestinians, including my own family, have faced in 1948. So this is just a small story that I wanted to share of Hashim Al-Azza. I may God rest his soul, Allah yarhamu. He was so kind to me, and that's why it was so important that I felt that I needed to share this story. So thank you so much for listening. Sorry, I took a long time.
I think it's a very important sharing, so I want to thank Marwa particularly because she filled in at the last minute. We had another person who ended up being sick, so thank you so much. And
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Can I stay at podium?
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you. So I'm not fancy and I don't have any slides. So a little bit about myself. I'm a Palestinian. My father was born in Tul Kerem, Palestine, and my mom is from Jenin. But like most Palestinians, my dad left when he was 8 years old, and he has no right of return. Until this day, he has not visited Palestine, although his cousins and other relatives still live in Tul Kerem. And my mom's cousins and relatives and uncles, the ones that are still alive, still live in Jenin, but she has not visited, and I have never visited. So I'm jealous of Walid, who's gone 4 times. And the reason why I have not visited is because I know I can go as a Canadian, but I kind of despise going through their airport and having to answer to Israeli military, or having to be interrogated or humiliated, which I know I will be, because they will know by my last name that I'm Palestinian. So even though I hold a Canadian passport, I will be discriminated against, and I know that for sure. I will be held for hours. I might be even refused, or I might be given a temporary permit or something that says that I'm only allowed in for a week, or not allowed to go to pray in the mosque or something along those lines. Those are stories I've heard of people that actually went back. So that is just the reality of us Palestinians. I want to talk about language. I always say that language is very, very powerful. And I feel that language shapes our perception, and our perception shapes the narrative. And for too long, the Palestinian narrative has been erased completely. We were not allowed to talk about the Nakba. Actually, until this day, and Walid knows that very well, that we cannot talk about the Nakba. And when we do, it's still a question of, oh, well, like, we don't know what happened. Even if we do, we don't really want to teach it to our kids, and we don't want to talk about it. So we, as Palestinians, have that duty to tell our story and to reclaim that narrative. And films like the one we just watched does exactly that. So the responsibility that we have now is to reclaim our narrative, to tell our story, to tell our history, and to carry that forward, because history is not just in the past, history is happening now. And as of October 7, we as Palestinians have been empowered more and more to tell the whole world what we see, what we've gone through, and what we no longer want to see happen to our kids and to the next generations. So I thank each and every one of you for being here today while you embark on a journey of learning, but most importantly, embarking on a journey of unlearning, because I think what we need to do is unlearn a lot. We, everyone here, or most of us here, if anyone here is Indigenous, then other than any Indigenous person here in this room, we're all settlers, and we should know that and we should acknowledge that. So once we embark on a journey of unlearning what we've learned of the propaganda that we have been taught in schools and media that omits anything that has to do with the truth, then only then we can shape history and rewrite the narrative, and that's what we all need to do. So when we watch films like this, I feel like we have a big responsibility to carry forward. What do you do after you watch a film like that? Where do you go from here? How much learning and unlearning are you willing to do? And how much are you going to speak up for the truth? So when our kids and next generations and the generations that come after can actually read the true history and not the one that is full of lies. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we don't have a lot of time left, but if anyone has some questions or comments, if you can keep it very short, that would be appreciated. Anything to say? Sort of leaves many of us speechless, I think.
I just want to thank you for having us bear witness to what's happening here. I am not Israeli, I am not Palestinian, but I feel very strongly that we have to witness. I feel helpless, but I can be here and I can hear your stories, so thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
I want to thank everyone that is here and did everything to bring this forward. My question is my question is a small one, not a small one, but in the scope of everything that's going on, it's a very narrow question. And what it is I'd heard that after they won the Oscar for this documentary, that I think it was Basil that was arrested, and I wondered if anybody knows or if there's news about what happened to him and what his condition is and whether he's actually out now.
I don't think he was arrested.
No, it was the other guy.
I don't think he was arrested. I think he was harassed by settlers. They beat him up, and then he went to the hospital and came out. Yeah, I don't think he was arrested. It was the other person.
Was someone arrested?
I didn't hear of anyone being arrested.
Sorry. Thank you. I forget his name.
Yuval?
No, it wasn't Yuval. So there's there was a third guy there in the film. Older guy, bald head. He was arguing with Yuval, saying, you're Israeli. Like people are upset. Like how can we be friends? He got arrested, and he got harassed and beaten up. So he got beaten up, and then the Israelis. He was in a ambulance, and the Israelis pulled him out of the ambulance and then put him in jail. And then I think a few days later he was finally released after pressure. So he's out of jail from now, from what I understand. Yeah.
He is, yeah. It was a short term, I think, that he spent in jail.
In terms of what we can all do and how we can have agency, we have a federal election. I'm sure many people have voted. We know that our local riding is very conservative strong, which is not just pro-Israel but anti-Palestinian. So I'd like to know what can we do to move, aside from just a vote, on a daily basis to make sure that there's call to justice and people are held accountable.
So we do have a slide for calls to action, and also I'd recommend that you visit the tables at the back that also have calls to action on them and different information on things that you can do. One thing is Serve Del Rock for Palestine has their weekly demonstration at Holland Park. The more people who do this, the better chance we have of informing people of what's going on. So I'll just pass it on if anyone has anything to add to that.
Yeah, we'll just show the, anything, or shall we? Oh.
Hey,
Okay, go ahead, Bill.
I'll keep it real short. The thing that bugs the hell out of me all the time is the continual misuse of the word anti-Semite. I think it stinks.
Well, absolutely, Bill. That's something that we really have to distinguish between, so.
Hi. Sorry, did I wake you up?
That was a teacher's voice, I think.
I think we need to put it a bit lower. Anyway, I think it's important that we go through the slides, and then if people have more questions, we would be happy to take them. So if you could get to the next one. Which one? Okay, so this is the, so to answer your question about what to do, you could visit the campaign office. Obviously, there's 4 candidates or 5 running, I'm not sure. But you can ask them to pledge and vote for Palestine. This organization has a number of things that they want candidates to agree on. And a lot of the NDP candidates have already adopted this and did the pledge. There are also liberals, but I think it's up to us to speak to the candidates, go to the office, bring this up and see if, where they stand. Even after the election, this campaign will probably continue. Now the next slide, please. So this is the platform, and I'm not going to read it. I'll just wait a minute for you to have a look at it. And the main thing is to stop the arms sales, because they're continuing. And we were told by our foreign policy minister, the Minister of Foreign Policy, that Foreign Affairs, I should say, that it had stopped, and it never did. It continues. They are continuing to, so we need an embargo on arms. And have the next slide, please. So this is the rally that Sir Del Rock for Palestine does every Sunday, and a lot of, woohoo, Free Palestine. It's amazing, amazing how many people honk their horns, how many people show up. They've been doing this since January. If a nice Sunday, you feel like coming by, it would be great. The more people that stand on the sidewalk, we're very visible, and we're making, I believe, a difference. At least for me, I can go to sleep a little bit at night knowing that I'm doing something other than signing petitions. Next slide, please. There are other rallies across Vancouver. And again, if you get in touch with some of these organizations, we could probably email this list to the membership. If you are not a member of South Rock, you could give your name and get on the list, and we can email you all the slides. So May 15th, May 16th, and 19th. These are only a few other things. There are many organizations that are taking action. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the calendar. I'll wait a minute. People might want to take a picture with their phones. And again, for members, we'll probably send this out. Next slide. Okay, thank you, and Free Palestine. And we still have time. Don't feel that you need to rush off. If anybody wants to continue the discussion, please raise your hand.
Actually, I think we are kind of out of time, and we want to give, sorry to say, but we do want to acknowledge our panelists here. We have certificates of appreciation here. So maybe Robert can